Is Kierra Sheard-Kelly insecure or nah? Today, that's what we're going to look at. But I want to first welcome you to Right to Real Love. This is the #1 dating and relationship show for women of faith. I'm Immanuel, and I help women of faith to better understand and interact with men so they can eventually meet and date the type of men they desire. If that's you, this is the channel for you. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. But today, like I said, we're going to talk about this viral video that's been going around of Kierra Sheard in this interview. She was asked about some advice. If some friends were to come over, what would she do as a married woman? She ended up sharing some advice that her mother gave her with regards to, hey, being willing to not allow those friends to stay at her home with her and her husband when they come to visit, but instead be willing to put them up in a hotel. Some people took offense to that. Some people say it makes her insecure that she doesn't trust her husband. You can by all means share your thoughts, but today we're not only going to react to this video, but I'm going to take a different spin and a different take than most people who've been talking about this, and I'm going to share the male perspective. So without further ado, y'all, let's get into the video and see exactly what Kierra said herself.
In your marriage. And so I'm down for it all.
And you know what? There's like I know you said you're really close with your mom, and I know she gives you advice, and there's like an ongoing rule. My mom tells me the same thing. I'm not married, but once you're married, do not let another woman into your household. And I know you have close friends. And
so the first thing that we notice is, even though people are getting at Kierra, the young lady that's interviewing her, her name Tashara, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, even she said that her mother has given her similar advice, even though she's not married, which is very important that she reiterated that point, right? Because people will point that type of stuff out. And she even said that, hey, you are careful when you are a married woman with regards to the type of women, even including your friend circle, that you bring around your husband. So I just wanted to point out that Kierra wasn't the only one that was sharing this perspective, but let's see what else has to be said.
You know, we've seen it on TV, reality shows. We've seen it in real life, seen it on court shows, talk shows. You let a family member, a close friend, stay at your house for a while. Maybe they need a place to stay, and something happens with the husband.
Now, I think we all can admit that these things happen, right? Can we at least admit that these things happen? It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen in Kierra's marriage, your marriage, or anybody else's marriage, but we know that these things have happened. So there is validity to this advice that came from both of these women's mother, for sure.
Are you mindful of that? Does your mother warn you of that? Like, Kierra, I know you have a...
Yo, you see the look Kierra made? Kierra like, girl, what you mean? Of course I'm aware. You gotta be aware. As women, you have to be aware. And even as men, it is vital as a man, if you are a husband, to be aware of the type of men, the type of people that you are also allowing around your wife, for sure.
Good heart, sweetie, but there's no woman that's staying in your house. Unless it's your sister, a sister, that's fine. But
absolutely, Tashara, my mama has already, look, don't have too many people around y'all. Don't get comfortable. I don't care how good you trust or whatever it is. I'm very mindful and very careful. I will buy a friend a hotel room before I let them stay at my house. However,
and that's the key right there. She stated that, and that's what people jumped on. And as you can see, there's a however. She has something else that she's going to say. One of the things that is often ignored, people run with that hot statement, and they often ignore the context. It's vitally important to see what she's going to say next, and that's going to be vitally important. So let's talk about what she's already stated. She stated that this is advice that came from her mother. And one of the things that I wanted to highlight is comfort. Sometimes we can become too comfortable around other people. And as you know, maybe you don't, but I know that sometimes you can invite people into your home and they can express a level of comfort that can become too comfortable for a guest. And you do have to be mindful of that when it comes to yourself, making sure you don't get too comfortable with regards to the people that you allow into your home, into your marriage, whatever the case may be, whatever your situation is. So I definitely want to point out the fact that comfort can definitely be one of the catalysts that can lead to certain situations like what she was alluding to earlier, somebody slipping up with somebody's husband or somebody's wife. And yeah, comfort can definitely be one of those things, if we're not careful, can cause that. But that's not to say that that's what's going to happen with Kierra or with you or me or anybody else. But let's get back to the main point. She has more to say with regards to that statement. She said, however, now let's see what follows.
I am a prayerful woman to discern the space that I am in. I'm also very cautious of, what purpose am I supposed to serve in this person's life? And so while I'm very prayerful, I'm always also asking God outside of mom to direct me. Is in this season, am I supposed to let them into my home? Because, you know, we as believers, we believe that what we have, we're supposed to share with others, but I'm not sharing my man. And so
Facts. As you shouldn't. And as any man would not want you to share him with anybody else, including your friends. Now, don't get me wrong. We know that there are some people out there who they are into that. If that's you, if you into that, by all means, I'm not trying to offend. I'm just speaking here that the majority of women of faith I know, they not trying to share their husband. And most men of faith, like myself, we're not trying to share our wives. So it's vitally important for us to acknowledge the fact that as a man, I'm not trying to share my wife. As a result, I'm also going to be cautious of the type of men, including my friends, including my family members, that I bring around my wife. Now, let's be real. When it comes to men, we have to be extremely cautious because there are some men that have no chill. They just are flirty by nature. They come on to women, and sometimes it's so natural that they are quote unquote unaware of when it's happening, and they will be hitting on your woman, hitting on your wife. And as a woman of faith, they could be hitting on you regardless of the fact that you are dating somebody, in a relationship, or engaged, or even in a marriage. So it's vitally important from the male perspective to make sure that we also are covering our wives, covering the women in our lives, our girlfriends, fiancés, whatever the case may be, to ensure that you're mindful of the type of men that you bring around them. As a man, I've always been cautious of the fact that some of my friends, well, I would say in the past, some friends that when I didn't know no better, like Kierra's point, when I didn't have the wisdom to discern what type of people I needed to be in my circle and in my life, I did have people like that where I would be cautious to bring my girl around them because that type of dude doesn't know any boundaries. That type of dude does not respect the fact that you're in a relationship with somebody. And rather than cause confusion, it's better to just avoid those type of situations altogether. Now, going back to the situation with regards to, family members, friends, somebody come and you're married and they want to come over to the house. As a man, I totally believe that if I have the means, like Kierra had, alluded to, if I have the means, by all means, let's put you up in a hotel. It's beneficial for both of us. We get to have the intimacy and the privacy of our home. You get to come over for a temporary period of time, and then you get to go back to the privacy of your own room. Like, who doesn't want it to be treated to having their own private room? Like, to me, I don't think it's an issue. It's different if you are requiring that other person when they come out of town to pay for their own hotel. Now that's different. Now, if I'm treating you, I think that totally aligns with me being able to safeguard my marriage and the intimacy and the privacy of our home, and at the same time showing you the courtesy of giving you your freedom to move and go as you want and to be able to be intimate, be private in the confines of that room, that hotel room. So this is the thing. If I have the means, I think that that's a great way to go about it. Now, that doesn't mean that every single person is going to always have to get put up in a hotel. We know that there are certain situations where it may be an emergency. Somebody is on some hard times and they need to just crash for 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever the case may be. Even in those situations, you have to be mindful. As Kierra has said earlier, you got to be mindful of the fact that you're not getting too comfortable. And as you may know, sometimes house guests can be getting a little bit too comfortable. So you also have to be mindful of the fact that you don't want them to get too comfortable. You don't know how other people operate within the privacy of their own home, how they may be dressing when it comes to their sleepwear. So there's a lot of different things that you have to be cautious of. So as a man, I think what Kierra is saying is beneficial. It shows that the woman values her husband. She prioritizes their marriage even over their friendship. And I think that that is something that is vitally important in a relationship, in a marriage especially, to know that your wife cares enough about you. She prioritizes the two of you together enough to say, hey, if I have to do things that will prioritize us over my friends, over some family members, I'm willing to do that. I'm willing to safeguard our marriage at that risk, at that cost. So I am totally in agreement with the things that she said. From a male's perspective, I think that she's doing an honorable and a respectful thing as a wife. But let's get back to the video.
Since I'm not sharing my man, I have to be cautious with, everything else that I share, as far as with him being there too.
Right.
So absolutely, that's a lesson that I get. And I think it's a such thing as a balance, which that also goes to Tashara, why we have to have wise friends, encourage our friends to, because you know how they say a lot of single.
That's the key right there, right? The onus isn't all on the woman or the man, meaning that husband, wife, that couple. It's not just on the wife to ensure that her friends are not the type that would try to make a pass at her husband, or that her husband would make a pass at them and they would be susceptible for falling for it. And likewise, as a man, if I'm operating as a husband, I need to be mindful of the fact that, hey, you know what? It's not just on me to safeguard my wife. I need to also be well, no, hold on. The point that I'm making, excuse me, let me clear this up. The point that I'm making is that all of the burden doesn't fall on the husband and the wife. There's also the responsibility of that friend or that family member. So me as a man, if I'm bringing other men around my wife or into our home, I expect that those men, like Kierra just said, have the wisdom and the discernment, especially if they're men of faith, to know that there are certain boundaries that should not be crossed, one, in my home, and definitely with my wife or the woman that's in my life. So that is vitally important to recognize, that it's not just the husband and the wife that have a responsibility to establish correct boundaries. The friends, the family members, the people that are being invited into their home, into their marriage, they also have a responsibility as well.
Women, they can't give you counsel, but I was single and I was able to tell my married friends good advice, you know?
Right.
So I think it is a such thing, but it definitely is also a such thing as boundaries.
Yeah, it's definitely a balance, because I hate when, like, oh, girl, don't let her around your man. Yo, that's my homegirl. So what if she's single? Don't just label her as she's gonna take, like, that's love right there. I like, that's a good point too. Like, you have to know the levels and the line of, no, that she loves me.
Absolutely. And some friends don't know that balance. Like, you can understand the balance, but if they don't understand the balance, then that gives you room and the green light to, all right, let's go ahead and do some adjustments.
That right there. As she stated, wisdom would tell you that the friend should know better. But as we know, everybody doesn't know better. Everybody doesn't have wisdom. Everybody doesn't have discernment. And that is when you have to take action. So as a man, if I'm recognizing that there are men who don't respect the boundary of my wife, my relationship, my home, my marriage, whatever the case may be, I'm limiting their exposure to me, to my wife, to my relationship, to my marriage, and to my home. So that is something that is vitally important. That other person has a role. And if that person isn't taking on that wisdom, they're not exercising discernment, you gotta take action. You gotta take action and limit your exposure to them. At least that's the way that I see it. So at the end of the day, man, I think that this video is pretty much concluded. I'm gonna let it play out.
I feel you 100%.
Right. And I'm not married, so I don't even know I'm talking like that. But
maybe it's on the way, honey, if that's what you want.
I'm gonna be prayerful, like you said.
All right, and I'm gonna cut it right there. But what I want to do before we wrap up is just let you guys know that from a male's perspective, I do not think that she was being insecure. As a man, if I was in this situation and I'm saying to my guy friends, hey man, I know you coming into town, I'm gonna put you up in a hotel, bro. You can come through the crib when you want, then you have the freedom to move and go as you choose. And that is not a person that's being insecure. It's a person that recognizes that their marriage is something that needs to be protected, the sanctity of it, as well as recognizing that we want to keep the boundaries and the privacy and the intimacy within our home and our marriage as well. So that is not a trust issue. I don't believe that that's a trust issue at all. 3 things came into play that I always talk about here, which is practicality, logic, and realisticness, right? All of those things are real, practical, and they are logical. You got to recognize the fact that some men cheat. Some women will cheat with your husband. Some men will cheat with your wife. And you have to be mindful of the fact that you don't know if that's going to happen to you. I don't think anybody can say, well, 100% guarantee that it won't happen. As much as you trust your spouse, as much as you trust the friends that are in that relationship with you. So I'm not here so much to talk about Kierra as much as to provide a male's perspective. I feel like as a man, I don't feel any disrespect or dishonor in her sharing this advice that came from her mother. I think that it's wise. I think that it's sound. I think that it aligns with logic. It's practical and it's realistic. You have to recognize that those 3 things are vitally important in this day and age. So from my perspective, I feel like she wasn't insecure at all. I think that she worked and operated as an honorable wife if she was to employ this. Clearly, she was just talking about advice. We don't even know if she's actually done this to anybody. And honestly, it's not about her. It's about us. What would you do? Let us know in the comments if you were in this situation. I already told you if it was me, I would actually follow some of the advice that was shared in this clip. Now, if you are a lady and you want to begin praying for your future husband, go check out that comment that is pinned to this video. You'll get a 7 daily prayers for free. It's a PDF that'll have 7 prayers that you can begin praying for your future husband. Just click the link, go to righttoreallove.com/pray, get your free copy today. With that being said, I can't wait to catch you guys in the next video. And yeah, I look forward to it, man. Thank you so much for your continued love and support. Stay blessed.